It's time to talk sports, it's time for the show. When you hear this song on the radio, it's time to tune in, better act fast. Let me get that potograph. Potograph, Sports Talk Radio. Starting now.
Let's go. What's up, everybody, and welcome to episode 146 of Let Me Get That Potograph. My voice is back, and we are back as always. My name is Drew, or the DH, and joining me as always, my co-host Scott Rappaport. What's up, dude?
Oh, dude, this has been a week.
Still early in the week, bro.
It's still early in the week, but so much going on. Like, between the, I don't even know where to start. There has been, like, I'm not even talking about anything personal. I'm just talking about just the industry stuff that is so, it's insane.
It is. We guys, the show is packed this week because, like Scott said, there's so much going on right now in the hobby, both different, good, bad, a lot of bad. It's crazy. It's a wild time right now. And if you think about it, the National less than 90 days away. I think now it's in its 80s or right at 90. Something about that. It always seems to happen right around the National time. You get a lot of weirdness, a lot of craziness starts to happen, but not. I don't know. This last week has just been nuts.
I think the craziest thing is that Topps Finest Basketball did not sell out right away. Yes. It took a couple of days, and I was kind of shocked about that.
I was shocked too, especially with the low price, because it didn't we had talked about what the post on the resale market was when we were talking about it the week before, but the boxes ended up being able to get the boxes for under $200.
Under 200, under 150. They were $130 for the box. I snagged a couple.
Yeah, so did I. And I was blown away that those didn't sell a lot better than they did.
But that's not all.
No, that's far from.
No. So, I mean, let's just get into it because we might as well do it. So, dropped. Was it today or yesterday?
Late Monday. We're recording on Tuesday, of course, like always. Late Monday evening, eBay dropped the announcement.
Yeah. So we're all familiar with the eBay authentication program for raw cards, $250 and higher, being handled by CSG. That hasn't changed.
No.
However, they added a brand new segment to it.
Yeah.
That when I first heard about it, I had some concerns. My concerns have been somewhat alleviated the more I've dug into it.
Right.
So now, graded cards, $2,000 and higher, and please expect that number to drop.
Oh, big time.
We'll now have to go to a different authentication center being run by PSA.
Yes.
For authentication. Now, there were some questions that came up when I first heard about this.
Oh, yeah, me too.
The biggest one was, okay, well, it's being sent to PSA. What are they going to be looking at? And we all know, the human element in it, the corporate element, the office politics type thing. Yeah. We know that if you send in a BGS slab or an SGC slab to PSA and try to get it to cross over into the equivalent PSA grade, the odds of that happening are fairly slim.
Yeah.
Not because the card doesn't meet that standard, but because,
it's in the slab.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I've had success, but I've had a lot of failures. And
correct.
The biasness of the slab and adding in the human element, it's always going to be there, even if it's intentional or not. I think, it's subconsciously in some people's heads.
And it's not, and I will say it's not just PSA.
Right. No, it's not.
Well, no, I want to be fair to PSA.
Yes.
It's not just them. If you sent a PSA slab to Beckett and, try to get it, you're going to wind up in the same or similar type situation. So my question initially, before I looked into it was, well, if they're going to be looking at the grades and the card, how many of these are going to get shot down that don't show up in PSA slabs?
Right.
For this. Okay. So
Turns out they're not looking at the grades.
Turns out they're not looking at grades, which is awesome. They're looking at the slab itself to make sure it hasn't been tampered with. Mm-hmm. They're looking at the label to make sure the label is authentic. And they are going to be checking that label off of whatever the grader's registry is to make sure that it is proper. So that leads to another question that I had initially before. PSA is still dealing with the backlog.
Well,
if they got all these people that they can spare for the authenticity, center for for eBay, why are they doing it now? Why aren't they doing it after?
I noticed that
they get through the backlog.
I thought about that as well, but as I read, it said it is a complete new team that was trained, and it's a lot easier when you're dealing with because let's keep in mind, they're not looking at anything except for does the label match what the card is, and is that card an official card made by that company? They're not looking at anything else besides that, outside of if it's been tampered with. And so, it's...
Well, it does.
They have a different team.
It is a different team. You are correct. You have to train them. You have to show them examples of what fake labels look like, what fake slabs look like.
And I did confirm, because I reached out to someone at PSA. I reached out to our rep, and I did confirm that this is a brand new team. They did not take any graders from that team. So they are still handling it. And I'm sure they could just get this done, a little quicker, hiring a new team. The training's going to be a lot less than the grading training, which is up to 6 months or more.
But it's not their real backlog is not necessarily with grading. The real backlog is with research, slabbing, and packaging and shipping and things like that, where it doesn't take as much time to train somebody. So why not get through this backlog first, then launch this program?
I agree. I don't think I think eBay, I think this is one of those things where eBay obviously is looking to, they already do it with sneakers all the way down to $100. And so that's where cards are headed. And I think eBay wants to roll this program out sooner rather than later.
Well, raw cards started at $750.
Yeah.
They're now it went down to like 500. Now it's down to 250. I think eventually it's probably going to wind up being $100 at some point too.
And so I think eBay's trying to get this. I think eBay's trying to push this out. And I think they came to PSA and they said that, hey, we want you guys to be the people to do it. And so I think that's why they jumped on it. My shock was Collectors has so much, I say Collectors and it's weird, but Collectors Universe, for those that don't know, that they've changed their name to Collectors since they didn't make a big deal about it. They just kind of did it. They have so many different brands and names under the Collector's name that they could have done this service under, not named PSA. And I think,
but there's PSA has a reputation within the industry, just like CSG, they could have done it under, they could have done the authenticity guarantee for raw cards under a different brand name or whatever. So it really doesn't make a difference as far as the quality goes, but having the PSA name behind it's a confidence thing.
But it does make it odd, like you said, when PSA is looking at CSG and BGS and SGC slabs. It's just it gets odd, it gets weird. I don't have any concerns about any of it. I just, like you said, I do agree. Get through the backlog and then do it. I know I have 4 legacy orders. Thank God, 2 up. That's what I call them, legacy orders, because they're like, it's almost 2 years now, and they're finally moving. So, and mine were the ones that were sent in at the end, at the beginning. So
I still have 2 left myself.
So they're getting towards the end. They're moving through it pretty quickly. Since they do have 2 dedicated teams, one handling the backlog, one handling the new, and I think that's worked out really well as well as the tiered release. But this is I agree. I'd like to see them get through the backlog, but they also haven't really revealed where that backlog is right now. It might not be as bad as we think. I know there's a lot of people
if you figure they cut off at the end of March of 2021, somewhere in there. So by the time I've got 2 orders that were checked in on April 26th. So they were sitting there. I think they arrived March 12th or something like that. So that was like the end. So there's maybe like 2 to 3 weeks after mine, because once you put the order in the system, you got 30 days to get it there. So I think somewhere along the line, there's probably 2 to 3 weeks after where I'm at. But that's again, that's a whole different issue. Now, I had another thought, and this ties into the next segment that we'll be talking about. I'm gonna go ahead and tease that next segment.
Yeah.
So there have been a lot of cards lately that have been called out for being trimmed and
patch swapped, lots of stuff.
Correct. So, and that have made it through. For some reason, they're all going to PSA, but they've made it through and been graded and slabbed by PSA, and they're being sold on eBay.
Yeah.
In addition to some other places too. Now that all of these cards have, and they're all $2,000 plus cards, so they're going to fit within this, this range. So since they have to go to PSA, this may be another way to get the ones that are known, that are, that are out there off the market. Because
especially with their Geniment service that fingerprint IDs them, things like that, it'll be very easy to see, what's been going on.
Well, no, it's more the ones that have been called out.
Well, right. Yes, those. Yeah.
The ones where they know here's the serial number on the slab.
Yeah.
This is the card we're looking for. If it's sold on eBay, it has to come here unless somebody is willing to sell it for below the threshold dollar amount. And there are a couple of them that are out there that are probably below that threshold dollar amount, but the vast majority of the big ones that have been called out have been, would sell for more.
Contenders, Trey Lance,
exactly.
Trevor Lawrence, Davis Mills contenders, things like that are going to be
correct.
Much bigger.
Now, and we'll talk about that in the next segment.
Yeah.
But this may be a way for PSA to snag those.
Oh yeah.
Because so the question is, obviously once they get called out, they get called out. They're done. Everybody knows about them anyway. I don't know how many of them are ever going to get sold because of that.
Yeah.
The guys that are putting I'll tell you, the guys that are putting all this information up on, usually it starts at blowout forums. The guys that are doing the research behind this, they're doing a phenomenal job.
Yes.
They
might as well. It's forensic. I mean, it's getting down to serious forensic details. These guys are not Joe Schmoes throwing together accusations based off of little greeny pictures. This is intense research that's done by these guys.
And frankly, I want to know where they get all the time to do this.
Yeah,
because they're definitely not getting paid for it.
No.
So so this will be a way of PSA to get them pulled off the market. But because of this, I'm curious as to how many cards are going to be moved off of selling on eBay.
Well, you've got alt, my slabs, you've got a million different marketplaces now. I mean,
you can do direct sales on Instagram and Facebook. I mean, there's all sorts of different ways to move it. Local shows.
Exactly.
Yeah, you could sit there and, because I'll tell you, as you're, somebody who sets up at shows, I get people that show up at my table when I do that and say, hey, are you buying? And, if I'm in a buying mood or whatever they got, that's fine. And I know a lot of the other dealers don't do this. We'll look up comps. We'll look up, to see what we should be paying for it, and things like that. But the one thing that most people don't check is with slabbed cards, we'll do a quick once over on the slab. We'll look at the label and make sure it's, it looks legit. But they're not checking, any sort of database to see if, hey, if this one is registered as trimmed. So it's very possible that, the guys that have them are going to wind up just showing up at a show, where I don't know where they're located, so they're going to be moved off the platform. But I'm curious as to how many other people are just going to move, off of the platform too, because they just don't want to sell, they don't want to have to send it to the authentication center.
That's what I was about to say. This is going to get to a point for eBay where I'm very interested with these new marketplaces, a marketplace that I've been using for a while, My Slabs, and then one that I'm just trying out now is Alt. And I've had tremendous success actually on Alt with everything from low end stuff to higher end. So, and I mean real low end stuff. It's been impressive. And so I can see a lot of people moving off of here as they say, well, I know that this one's real. I don't need to wait this time. I don't want to wait this time. I've got a show this weekend, whatever it may be, even though they are doing a good job getting it to you decently quick. I bought a card to test it, and I didn't see any real difference or major difference in me receiving it really than normal. Maybe that was just because I had a good shipper and got lucky on the turnaround time.
And that could be. And I'll tell you, as a seller on the platform, I ship, either same day or next day. But even the buyers may not necessarily want to wait. And now I'll say, as the seller, I actually like the program. And it's the same reason that I like their global shipping program, is because once it gets to the authentication center, it's out of my hands. It's not my responsibility anymore.
Yes.
And I am 100% confident in how I label things, as far as descriptions, things like that. So I don't have any concerns about it, and I don't have to worry about taking a return, because once it gets there, it's out of my hands. The only concern I really have is, we know there's a whole bunch of shady people that work for the post office out there. And once they figure out what the addresses are for these places, and they want to snag a package, if it's going to the PSA run authentication center, they're going to know that is a slab card that is over $2,000 in value.
And don't think that's not getting around. There's lots of postal employees, and and people like that quit their jobs and open up card shops. Like, I know one of them, one of the biggest ones.
And I will say, one of the vast majority of the people that work at the post office are fine, upstanding people. Around with any of this kind of stuff. However, there is always so many employees at the distribution centers, at the the carriers. There are bound to be bad ones out there, because you can't have a group of that many people without having enough bad apples to make them all look bad. But the 99.9% of them,
of course,
people. I don't want to bash the post
office. Not at all. Heck no. My post office man does a ton for me. I ain't
it's
him at all.
it is a very small group of people that are making them look bad, but they are out there, so it's something to be aware about. I don't have that problem with the global shipping center, because it could be a dollar card that is just going to Canada or whatever. It's but the issue is, with the authentication centers, that the values are going to be higher.
Yep.
So I'm curious as to what percentage of those packages that the seller ships don't make it to that location.
Yeah, that's actually something that I never thought of, but it's something to watch out for, especially, and it kind of segues perfectly into our next segment, talking about bad apples.
More things to look out for.
Yeah, more things to look out for. But the eBay authentication program, guys, is going into effect. So if you do have an eBay, if you are a seller on eBay and have not seen this yet or anything, and you are selling or buying those slabs, those couple $1,000 slab, they will be going through authentication and going through PSA. But like you said, man, when you have something so big, there's always a couple of bad apples. Well, there's been some bad apples in the hobby. There's been some bad apples in the hobby as long as the hobby's been around. But recently, we've had those forensic detectives that we spoke of earlier over on Blowout uncover what I'll go on and say right now was either the beginning or one that's already happened, and that is a trimming ring. And one of the people involved is a very, very well-known person in the industry, and someone that I actually know personally and have done deals with, and that's Vahi Heitman, a very, very well-known person in the hobby. He set up very prominent at the Dallas shows.
Not anymore.
Not anymore. No, not anymore. But if you met him, you knew him because he was very loud. He was very unapologetic. He was extremely loud. You knew him if you saw him. But
so he's basically the East Coast Vegas Dave.
Yeah, in a way, I guess, but don't give him that much credit now. But yeah, so there is a trimming scandal, which I do not in any way, shape, or form think that this was just him, and we'll get into that later. But what we are discussing is the new trimming scandal, which it's come out that with a couple of cards they found known for sure, a Trevor Lawrence, a Trey Lance, and a Davis Mills Contenders autograph that were all confirmed to be trimmed, but they were graded by PSA, which tells me a couple of different things. But Scotty boy, more bad apples in the industry, and another trimming scandal that could be pretty big, man. This one could be big.
So I understand why it happens. It's money. It's all about money.
Yes.
But we're not talking about low dollar cards.
No.
We're talking. It was the latest rounds. When you mentioned it earlier, was the Trevor Lawrence Contenders auto. Was it a cracked ice?
Yeah, I believe so. Most of them were. The Davis Mills was a really low numbered one too. There were a couple.
And that one kind of surprised me. The Davis Mills kind of surprised me.
Well, it told me one thing, and that's that this was an operation. And
well, but here's my thinking on the Davis Mills. Is, because again, why are you going to waste time trimming a Davis Mills? What I think is that one was done
as a test
to perfect the process.
Yes, of course it was.
Because you don't want to destroy a Trevor Lawrence auto,
right?
When doing this without having to run a test on it, and I think that's what the Davis Mills was.
1,000%, especially that had to be doing.
Now, this is different than the past trimming scandals that we've seen.
Yes, it is.
The past trimming scandals that we've seen, it is very clear that and PSA has actually gotten pretty good, especially with the gentleman technology and things like that. They've gotten really good at detecting, all this kind of stuff. But they are doing something a little bit different, because the cards, usually when a card gets trimmed and put in a slab, obviously somebody screwed up. But you can usually tell that it's been trimmed just by looking at the slab, because there is a little, top or bottom, left or right. There is a little sliver where it doesn't fit completely.
Yeah.
These seem to fit completely.
Exact, which is what, that's where I saw that this was a pressing and trimming operation. And that's where this gets involved, because I've been shown the process, and I've been explained the process by Brian Gray. He's shown me the machines, everything where they'll literally, guys, what we're talking about here is they will literally take a card, use these machines that press the card down, and it'll press out maybe even only 1/164th.
So wait, hold on a second. So Brian has actually shown you the machine.
Well, he told me the ones to look at, and then someone else showed.
Okay, because I like that would have brought up another question. Like, what is Brian?
No.
What is Brian doing with one of these machines?
Brian told me the machines to find that they were. I went and found and saw what they were, so someone could show me what they can do.
Yeah, because that doesn't sound. I was going to say,
right?
It doesn't sound like Brian would have anything to do with that.
No. What we were discussing the old trimming scandal, and that's when he told them to me in person. He actually talked about it on this show. So I've seen the machines that do this, and they will press the card down and get maybe even 1/164th of an inch even extra of a card, make it just that much bigger, and then have that much area to cut off. Now, it makes it really hard on a lot of cards, because it's a lot of straight lines, not a lot of crazy zigzags and things like that. So you can't really tell when they've been pressed, because they still meet the minimum size requirements. However,
they meet the minimum size. They meet the minimum size requirements from measuring the edges around and the size. But what it's going to do is, when you press something down like that, it's going to make it thinner.
Yes.
And I'm not entirely sure if any of the grading companies out there have any equipment that are sensitive enough to measure that type of tolerance.
Well, because like I said, it's so minute. That when I've held one after it was pressed. Like I said, I actually went and found these machines, put a piece of crap card down there, had them do it to see what it is. You can't tell a difference. You'd have to have a technology. You're not going to be able to see this with the naked eye.
No, and you need a caliper. You need a calipers.
Yes.
That is sensitive enough down to the 1,000th of an inch.
Yes.
In order to do that. And frankly, putting the calipers on a card like that to measure you run the risk of scratching the card too.
Yeah.
But
this was very advanced. What the point is, I'm trying to say is, a lot of people have been slamming PSA like crazy, saying, they should have caught these blah, 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 blah. These were not your normal guy just sitting at home saying, okay, I'm going to trim off a little bit of white. This was a little operation. This was definitely a team operation. And they also, which a very interesting part, I know Vahi, I know who he subbed his cards with for a long time. The last few subs, he seemed to have changed up and used Mark's cards, which is also very interesting, because there's a connection there where there are submissions of his that are being held up in the court that, the bankruptcy stuff right now at PSA. So there's cards that he has subbed with Mark's cards lately. And I know for a fact that was not who he was using before because I inputted his cards when he subbed them in the past. So I know what service he was using.
Well, so here's an interesting question. Chances are he would have gone through and made a claim on which cards were his that are still being held by PSA. So if that's the case, and if I was PSA, I'd be grabbing those cards.
I'm sure they are.
And double checking it and looking at everything, looking them up, because especially if they're serial numbered.
Yeah.
If they were, a lot of these cards were eBay purchases.
Exactly.
Where there's a record of it. So they can go back and find the serial number on it and do the same kind of research that the guys on Blowout Forums have been doing and looking to see, hey, this has been trimmed, this has not been trimmed, and really kind of getting to the bottom of it. So I'm curious as to how many more are still in the pipeline that have not made it out yet because they've been so the funny thing is this whole bankruptcy thing with Marks
might keep them off the market.
may have ended up saving a lot of people from getting their hands on a card that was pressed and trimmed.
No, 100%. I mean, obviously you have to have all the other, bulk subbers. They'd have to tell you personally if, he subbed through them and everything lately. But all of the recent submissions that anyone could find were through Mark's cards. And there were a lot of submissions right there at the end, right before the Mark's card stuff happened, that his subs were in. More information that the awesome forensic detective CSI over at Blowout. Those guys are just amazing. But it was an interesting change. I find it an interesting little crossover there with them. But like you said, it could end up being something great because we could stop more of these coming on the market. Because I do think this is something that was in its infancy, but I do think that there's a lot out there in submissions that, because it is contenders, stuff like that, and we haven't really had a ton of big releases up until the last couple of weeks. So and I know people are probably going through a lot of other stuff, especially the Blowout guys now, and the fact that I haven't seen too many more unearthed yet since this broke makes me think that a lot of them might be held up right now.
Well, it's possible. Contenders obviously came out after the Marks bankruptcy, so we don't know, how many were done prior to that with prior products and things like that. I mean, it could be there's a bunch of 2020 stuff that is that's sitting there that they were trying to pass stuff on. It could also be that there's none.
Exactly.
But the trimmers very rarely sub directly themselves.
Yes.
They usually use somebody else because they don't want to, if they get caught.
No, the more names in the middle, the more businesses that they can attach in between, it's harder to get back to them. And it's more for the fact that, they've either one already been blacklisted, because they got caught before, or two, they don't want to be blacklisted themselves, because if they've got non-trimmed cards that they want to sub, they can always send them in themselves and then, send the trim stuff or a mix of the good stuff and the trim stuff through, especially if there's a record of it being an eBay purchase, they can always say, oh, well, it came to me like that, and, kind of get away with it. Sort of. That's one thing I was surprised at was the brazenness of just reselling these. Like the eBay tracking, like to find it was so simple. Like they really didn't think through the reselling of these once they got them.
Well, it's because they're not waiting.
No,
they're doing it. They're putting it through immediately, and they're trying to flip it immediately. The problem is those eBay listings stay up there for a long time. And if it's within 90 days, if you have Terapeak, you can click on the actual listing and look at the actual picture, blow it up and things like that.
Right.
Once it's over 90 days, you can't click on the listing and the picture gets smaller and you can't really look at the fine detail that you need in order to do this. So they're not, I think they got caught because they didn't wait long enough.
Me too. And hopefully, like we said, if this was the beginning of something big, hopefully a lot of them are stuck up and still up at PSA or stuck in the system still. And I know that they'll be looking into everyone that they can that's associated with him, but or at least with Bahi and anyone else that's been associated with it. Blowout has a couple other names, I believe, I think. But we'll see what happens. It's definitely something shocking, and it's one of those things that it always, like I said, this stuff always, something like this always gets exposed right near the national. Like I think the last couple nationals right before it, there's always some big scam operation that's being busted.
Now, the good news, I guess, in this whole thing is you can't really do the pressing thing with any of the thicker cards. So, National Treasures and, Flawless and that kind of stuff, because it would be too obvious.
Oh, yeah, you can't.
You can only do it with the flat cards, the 20-point, card stock. So don't get me wrong. There's a ton of cards that are extremely valuable that are on that size card stock.
Yeah.
But if you're looking and have concerns about, hey, was my National Treasures, Patrick Mahomes trimmed or, or Preston trimmed, you're good because it's not gonna work. The other concern that I've got with this one, it has more to do with the grading itself, because now the grading companies are obviously going to have to start checking the thickness of the cards.
Yeah.
And probably not all. I mean, it's not, but what that's going to do though, is it's going to slow down the grading process.
Yep.
And that is just going to be another drag on things. So yeah, way to go, dickwad.
Yeah, I know. Appreciate it, bud.
That's all I got to say. Kiss my ass in there. Fuck yeah. I mean, whatever you want to put in there. But I think if it's 100% proven, I don't know why somebody would destroy their reputation for that.
I know. I don't either. Unless it's something, like I said, unless they really thought this was something big. And that's why I, again, think that it is something very big. Knowing the person, like actually, now I'm not saying I have a friend. I've in no way ever had a friendship. I had a business relationship. Absolutely. With Bahi. I'd made multiple deals in person. Had made multiple different deals and watched him do billions with couple of very, very good friends of mine. And so, like I said, this was someone that was very known in the hobby, and I just can't see him doing, like, that's why I think that this was the beginning of something planned as something big, because he the dude has a very, very high dollar collection. He has, he wouldn't be doing this for a couple grand, like he isn't doing this for $10,000. Like that's where my biggest concern was when I heard the name.
Well, I mean, he obviously thought he was going to get away with it, because nobody, and it doesn't have to be cards, it could be anything. It could be bank robbery. Nobody goes and does something without actually thinking that they're going to get away with it.
Exactly.
I just don't think he thought he was. I think he thought he was eventually going to get caught. Probably. I just don't think that. I think it was. He may have thought that he'd be able to drag it out long enough.
Yeah. Where
it wouldn't get tied to him, and it wouldn't get. He wouldn't be affected by it. But with the stuff that's out there now, the technology that's out there, even that home detectives seem to have access to. It's one of those things where, I mean, he's toast.
Absolutely.
And nobody's going to buy the stuff, even the good stuff that he has, nobody's going to buy it off him anymore. He's going to be stuck with it.
Oh yeah, no.
So what are you going to do?
Yep. I'm going to have to find some third party with no morals, which I'm sure he'll find, that'll move his stuff off site some way, shape, or form to somebody. But, it is definitely going to be tough for him personally to move it. He's persona non grata everywhere right now. And he was also someone that, like I said, was a very strong presence at shows. You if you don't know who he is by name, you definitely would if you go to the big shows and you saw videos. Loud, made himself known, and was often involved in some pretty big deals. So it was a shocking when I heard the name, but even more shocking and disappointing when I saw the ridiculousness of yet another trimming scandal in this hobby.
People never learn.
No, they absolutely don't. And with that, guys, we are going to take a quick break, go pay those bills, and we'll be right back. And welcome back, everybody, to episode 146 of Let Me Get That Potograph. All right, and it is time now for this segment that is taking the nation by storm. You know what time it is. It's time for movers and shakers. And Scott, it's been a wild week. It's been a lot of fun, a lot of awesome sports going on right now. A lot of really great basketball, a lot of great baseball going on, a lot of awesome soccer even going on right now. But I'm going to let you kick it off this week as usual. what sport were you going to? Who you got for movers and shakers this week?
I am rolling basketball today.
All right.
And I'm going to be very quick. There's no discussion needed. Ja Morant.
Yeah. And nothing else.
And I'm just going to shut up and everybody can do their thing. That's it. It's simple. You don't need to talk about them that much. But if anybody who has moved and shaken his way this week, it is absolutely Ja Morant.
No, and I'll 1000% agree with you, and I won't spend too much time on it either. Ja Morant, obviously, I think right now you're watching a series play out that I posted about it on my social media wall, like my personal one the other day. I think you're watching a series right now that is a transitional series, almost a passing of the torch, even if Memphis loses. I think this is where you see this is a team that is going to be dominating the West and being in the Western Conference Finals, if not the NBA Finals, for multiple years in a row, starting possibly next year. This team is rapidly developing. They have not missed on any draft picks outside of Ja, but Ja has taken his game and has shown that he can elevate it to ultimate superstar level. If he can stay healthy, this is a team that is absolutely insanely talented, insanely young, great coach, great chemistry, but led by an absolute incredible basketball player in Ja Morant. So I 1000% agree with that pick.
All right. Who you got this week?
All right. Well, I'm going to switch it over to baseball for you. And
okay.
He won't be there for long because they never are. But I got to go with my man over in Miami, Jazz Chisholm, brother.
That's 2 weeks in a row we've had a Marlins player.
Yeah.
In movers and shakers.
I didn't think about that, but you were right.
That's a first.
And probably a last.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. One of the Mason brothers may come up at some point.
Yeah. I mean, we might have him again, but yeah, back-to-back weeks with the Marlins. Jazz Chisholm, dude. This dude playing his tail off this year. We already knew he was good in the field, kind of struggled his rookie year last year, obviously. But this year, 62 at bats, averaging 306, 4 home runs, 17 RBIs, 4 stolen bases, and an OPS of 1.018, which is in the top 10 in the league in OBS in multiple different categories. The kid's finally starting to put it together at the plate.
This is the stuff that we expected.
Yeah.
Out of him when he got called up. This is what we saw in the minors. This is what we absolutely expected. And it just took him a little while to adjust to the major league pitching.
He's 24. I like him. He plays second. He's a switch hitter, obviously. So he's got some. And I mean, if you look at his splits down the middle, he's actually doing incredible and almost the same on both sides. He seems to have no problem moving around. Like I said, already great in the field. So Jazz Chisholm, I think, is somebody that if you look at his cards, his value's down. Like, I mean, his first Bowman oranges and reds and stuff, obviously, they're going for big money, like all of them are these days. But if you get into just the basic type of stuff, the lower part of the Bowman spectrum and other products like that, incredibly low for a guy that I think he's a Marlin, so he's eventually going to move on to a team to contend because that's what they do. And so he's eventually going to be on a team contending for the World Series. And I love what I've seen from him so far. Like we said with the pitching last week, small sample size, but he's tearing it up. He had 20 home runs last year. So, I mean, he wasn't like not doing anything last year, but he's already got a fifth of that this year. And, only 62 at bat. So big things coming from him, I think, this year. So Jazz Chisholm.
Yeah. And I got a fifth of something else, but we'll talk about that after the show. I think it's a good pick. I think he is wildly underrated to a point, and it's mainly because he had such a mediocre year last year.
Absolutely.
I think his value's being down, but as far as the oranges and the reds being up there, dude, if I had a first Bowman orange, the orange or red would probably be like a $3,000-$4,000 card. So that's not really saying much, but if you're looking at the base autos and stuff like that for first Bowman, it's worth the gamble.
Absolutely.
At this point, and if he keeps up the way he's keeping up, and you're right, he'll leave the Marlins at some point. The question is he going to wind up going to a contender, or is he going to wind up going to like the Pirates or the Reds?
Right.
And actually, I shouldn't say that about the Pirates. Their farm system is stocked right now. They got a lot of guys that are coming up, and they are going to give everybody a run for their money pretty soon.
Yeah.
Not this year, maybe next year. So going there, if Chisholm went there, it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world for him. For me, it would, but but he could still wind up at the Reds and not pick up a ring for his career.
Yeah. We'll see what happens, but Jazz Chisholm, my pick for this week's Movers and Shakers. So that's going to wrap up this week's Movers and Shakers, y'all. But before we wrap the show up today, we've definitely got an interesting topic, Scott. Phil Hughes, you guys know him from Phil's Pulls, the awesome pro baseball player turned breaker / awesome hobbyist who's just wonderful for the hobby, put out a pretty interesting tweet that, of course, set the hobby on fire.
Yeah, I saw this one, and I'm like, you know what? We got to talk about that this week. So Phil Hughes tweeted the other day, said, for those interested, I'm reading this word for word, for those interested in one-of-one rarity in Archives Signature Edition, and I'm assuming he's talking about the 2022 Archives.
Yes.
Edition. I was asked to sign 800 cards for the retired player release. 74 of them were one-of-ones. Now, I will say that in regular Archives last year, he had a pretty cool thing going because he did have an autograph in regular Archives last year. And for people that hit a specific card, he was giving away. He wanted it, but he was giving away product.
Yes.
So I think whoever hit the one-of-one, and I don't know if it ever got pulled, but he put it out there. He's like, if somebody pulls the one-of-one, I will give you a case of National Treasures.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure it was National Treasures baseball. So it's not like we're talking about NT basketball or anything like that. So, of course, I responded to his tweet. And my thing was, so I guess you're not giving away a case of NT for the one-of-ones with this one. And he liked it. He hit the little heart thing on his Twitter. This is ridiculous. and look, I mean, this is just ridiculous.
Yeah.
There is no reason for there's no reason, and Phil, if you're listening, please don't take offense by this. There is no reason Phil Hughes should be signing 800 cards for any product.
No, I agree.
But for 74 of them, that's almost 10% of what he signed were one-of-ones.
Yeah.
Why? Like, I had hopes. I had high hopes when Fanatics bought Topps.
Mm-hmm.
I really hoped that they would take their collectors' minds and be like, maybe we shouldn't flood the market with.
Well, do you think Fanatics has had much to do with do you think, are we really at the point now where, because products do have 8 to sometimes 12-month lead times. Are we at that point where Fanatics really had too much input into the design of this? Because when they bought it, they pretty much, in order to keep up with allocations and distributors and everything.
Well, hold on a second. This is not. We're talking about Archive Signature Series.
Right.
This is not a designed and printed product. This is a buyback product or something they're pulling out of existing inventory.
Right.
This is not a crazy, 12-month lead time product. Phil, in the tweet, he posted a picture of this, the stack of these 74 one-of-ones that he was asked to sign. These are not brand new cards. So I don't think they plan this one out as far in advance as they plan out a lot of the other products, because you don't need a new design.
Sure, I
understand
you don't
all
need to
send it to the presses and things like that. So,
I just don't know how much Fanatics has had to do with the releases up till now. I'm not sure about it. So those hopes that you have, I'm saying, I don't think we've still seen exactly how Fanatics is putting out stuff in terms of, basketball and stuff, all that stuff. It's been limited. This product, however, this is absolutely ridiculous. I acquaint it to Panini White Box 101s almost. But at the same time, I look at it as, look, Archive Signature Series, guys, it's a buyback auto product. You know it. Buyback autos are never going to have as much impact or as much value as the other ones. And I guess I'd rather have one of each than 20 of each. I don't know. But like you said, the main thing is, and you nailed it, is Phil shouldn't be signing 800 cards for a product like this, period. Like no retired player for archive signatures should be signing 800 cards, period. I don't care who the player is, honestly, because it shouldn't be that big of a release to begin with. It's a freaking buyback product. It's not something that needs to be big. You already got the retired, the signature. You already break it down so you can put 80 different versions of it out. You don't need 800 cards signed by one person.
On the bright side, it's not an expensive product.
No, it's not.
So we got that going for us. But I mean, I wouldn't mind if there were 800 like Derek Jeter autos in there, or Ken Griffey Jr. or
but there's 10. Instead there's 5. There's 10.
Exactly. Or if they can resurrect Doc Ellis from the grave and have him sign 800, I'd be pulling for all those.
I mean, this makes Select this product makes Select look like it has few 1-of-1s.
And that's ridiculous.
And that's hard to do. But yeah, I mean, I don't know what to really say outside of it. It's just, it was incredibly alarming to me. I guess the print run for this product is a lot bigger than I thought it was going to be. But that means the demand for it was there, because maybe it's not.
Stuff. Maybe it's not, and every case is going to have like 3 Phil Hughes autographs in it.
There you go. Maybe he's the star of the. Maybe he's the star of the retired player edition. It's just Phil Hughes.
It's 800 Phil Hughes cards.
Yeah.
A one of one Derek Jeter, a 1-of-1 Cal Ripken Jr., and a 1-of-1 Griffey Jr., and it's all Phil Hughes. I think that might be the entire product run.
It might be,
and I have no idea if the other 3 guys are in there, but there always seems to be, Jeter signs a lot for Topps. There always seems to be at least a Jeter in there. So 800. This is an 801 card product.
Yeah,
800 Phil Hughes cards and 1 Derek Jeter. I don't know if I would buy that. I guess we'll have to wait to see what the checklist is when it comes out. And maybe they, usually that a product in hobby shop is usually what, like $60-$65.
60, $70 maybe tops per box.
Under normal circumstances, even a Phil Hughes 1-of-1, I would have been happy about, but finding out that there's 74 of them floating around out there, it's almost like you want to try to, it's almost like you want to try to get all 74.
I was about to say, is it Pokemon? Is this the Pokemon set for cards? You got to catch them all.
It could be. I was thinking that. I just didn't want to say it because it just sounded stupid. But I'm glad you brought it up and not me.
No problem.
I don't know. I mean, maybe it's a goal. Maybe it's like, hey, let's see how many of the 74 1-of-1s that we can get out of this set. And maybe there's one Phil Hughes 1-of-1 in every case.
Yeah.
I mean, there seems to be a lot of 1-of-1s that are popping out of the active player that just came out. I mean, somebody hit it was an Ohtani. I think it was an Ohtani and a Trout 1-of-1. Both came out of the same case.
Oh, God.
That's which was bad correlation on Topps's part. But
absolutely.
Yeah, and again, it's not an expensive product, so it's not like somebody's sinking like $500 into a product to pull a Phil Hughes auto.
No, and that's where I kind of think this product is either, as Fanatics transitions into everything, I honestly think they're going to cut down a little bit on some of the releases, since they're going to be releasing so many products of different things. I think you might see a little cutback of releases and maybe more of a print run. But this is one of those products I could either see going away in a year or two, especially if it continues on this track. It'll definitely be going away soon. Or being one of those like almost get to the retail level where it's something that is just considered incredibly low end, because you're already hitting the buybacks, which unless it's an absolute legend, it means absolutely nothing. And it's just going to be less valuable than any other product that you pack pull an auto from. I've never really understood the appeal of the product to begin with, at least in terms of outside of the big boys, which I'd rather them just put those buybacks in other products.
Well, the good news, the one thing I do like about this product is that they're all on-card autos.
Yes, I do like
there's
that.
No stickers or anything like that. So it's not, the fact that they're buyback cards really doesn't mean, in my mind, it doesn't really hurt it. Now, I don't see it as, if it's a 1-of-1 stamped, Bowman First auto.
Right.
It's in archives. It obviously is not going to carry the value as like the one-of-one superfractor
just
auto
like
that
a white
came out of the
box or
actual
something.
product. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't see it, as hurting just because it's a buyback product. But you've got to take into consideration that, of what the product is. It's not a massive overpriced product. It's not something you're looking to pull that kind of stuff for. I would just like the ability to have a Phil Hughes list case. And I just don't think we're going to have that with this product.
Yeah.
And Phil, look, man, I love you. Don't take any of this personally. We're just having a little fun with it. And I'm sure you're having just as much fun with this, as well. So like I said, don't come in, because again, I had a chance to hang out with him a little bit at the National last year, and
he's a great guy.
He's not a small guy.
No, he's not.
Yeah, he makes me look very tiny and could probably stuff me in a locker very easily. So please, Phil, just please don't do that.
No, we have nothing but love for Phil, and hopefully we'll probably, I guess I should say, I'll be pulling you in some archives for some retired players this year. Guess I should say probably.
We'll see how many come out on letter rip when archives signature.
Exactly.
Retired player comes out later this year.
Exactly. Well, with that, guys, we're going to wrap up this week's episode of the show. Once again, I'd like to thank our awesome sponsors, Vanity Slabs, Card Crusade, and Vintage Breaks. And guys, we will be making an announcement here in we'll probably make it this week or possibly next week on the show. But we are going to start doing some live episodes of Let Me Get That Autograph. So we're going to be coming to you live. We'll have some special guests. We'll have open phone line time for you guys to be able to call in. Lots of different stuff for the live shows, and we'll give you a lot more details on that soon, but it will be a monthly type of thing, so you guys will be able to see it all the time. We'll give you all those details coming up real soon. I know I'm looking forward to it, man. I love the live shows. Yeah.
As am I. You know what I love most about the live shows is I can drink. I can drink from the live shows.
Yeah, exactly.
So, for those that are calling in late, maybe a little bit later in the show, the answers to your questions are a little bit more interesting.
They do.
The more scotch I've had. And, for those that really want to see that, take a look at the Christmas special that we did.
Exactly.
Towards the end of the year.
Exactly.
Had a little fun with that one. I think the biggest excitement was the ball of ice.
Yes, the ball of ice.
The ball of ice. It wasn't even about that. It was the ball of ice.
The ball of ice was phenomenal.
But no, I'm looking forward to getting that rolling. And we'll have that announcement coming up soon.
Yes, we'll have all that information for you guys here very, very soon. Looking forward to that. Got a lot of awesome things as well. Make sure to check out Let Her Rip and, of course, Hobby Hotline every Tuesday and Thursday. Once again, thanks to our awesome sponsors. But until next week, guys, you know the deal. Keep ripping those packs, pulling those hits. We'll talk to you next week. Peace.